Is there too much cautiousness in the Democratic Party? Obviously, Trump doesn't have any caution whatsoever.
Often, yeah. I mean, not
Which
that the
is an
answer
asset in a minute.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the answer is to emulate Trump, but yeah, I mean, to take one example, like most of my Democratic colleagues still hesitate to go into venues and spaces that I think we need to be in, where people might not be exactly on our side or even on the level. But although it's happening more and more. Like I remember getting not just feeling like I was one of the only ones who would go on Fox News, but having to defend going on Fox News. Like people said I was, contributing to their business model, and some people said it was actively harmful to go onto Fox News. Now, I think it's relatively uncontroversial in the party that we should be there. Well, it's funny, they're not booking me as often as they used to.
They're obsessed with Gavin, just so you know.
Oh, okay. Well, as long as somebody's doing it. But also into the kind of the online. Look, most people younger than me aren't getting the majority of their news from any TV.
No, that's quite an aged demographic.
And so obviously there's kind of an online expansion of that same principle. But the principle is there, and I think I would take the podcasts. So, I've started doing some of these podcasts that are like 3 hours long. And even if you intended to be on talking points for 3 hours, it is just not possible, which is risky. It's a risk, and it's the kind of risk that a lot of people in the consultantocracy in the party tell you shouldn't take, because you will definitely put a foot wrong in 3 hours. You just will.
Do you think you're risk averse?
I think I'm less risk averse about that than others who wouldn't do it.
Okay, let's talk about a topic then. You have a well-earned reputation as an effective communicator, 100%. You got blowback for equivocating when you were asked about Gaza in an interview on Pod Save America. You now say you would recognize a Palestinian state as part of... Go ahead.
Go ahead.
As part of if I'm wrong, you can correct me. As part of a two-state solution, and the U.S. should not pass another 10-year agreement with Israel on foreign military aid. What did it take getting dragged online to clearly state your position on this issue? And please, more clearly state it for us.
Yeah, so on the specific issues, there were three things that I spoke to. One was a resolution about offensive weapons going to Israel. And I believe, like a lot of Senate Democrats who voted for it, that was an important step, something that I would support, even though I'm not in the Senate. Because it's one of the few things I could think of that would get the attention of Netanyahu in the conduct of the war. So that's number one. Number two, on the recognition of a Palestinian state, I think that if you believe in a two-state solution, then by definition, you believe in the recognition of a Palestinian state. But that does not mean that you just turn around tomorrow morning and do it while Hamas is still in charge and with no security guarantees for Israelis who are living surrounded by countries and organizations, including Hamas, that are dedicated to wiping them out. So yes, it has to happen, but it has to happen as part of a negotiated, credible, and enforceable agreement. And then on the third policy issue, the MOU, in the past, we've had our security relationship defined by I think it's happened 3 times now, by a 10-year non-binding but important MOU between the U.S. and Israel. I'm not sure that's the right answer going forward. I'm not saying I'm sure structurally what all the technical details of it should be. What I am saying is by 2028 or 2029, we don't know what we're going to be looking at in terms of how the security relationship is structured. I can tell you for sure right now that there should be a security relationship, that should include the U.S. maintaining its historic commitment to making sure that Iran or anybody else is not able to achieve their aims of destroying Israel. But that is a defensive goal, which is different from some of the things that the Israeli government has expected the American taxpayer or requested the American taxpayer to continue to support.
One of my students here named Zach wants to know, he asked me and sent me a note, if you still consider Israel a strong ally of the United States, and if so, what line would Israel have to cross to lose your support?
So Israel is not behaving, obviously, as a good friend, but that's past the point, right? The problem is that the Netanyahu government is perpetrating atrocities in Gaza. Atrocity is the word you want to use. Would you use the word genocide? I have a lot of respect for not just the moral weight of that word, but the legal definition it represents. And so out of deference to that, I'm not going to jump into that semantic fight. But The important thing is that the killing has to stop, the starvation has to stop, the war has to stop. And of course, the hostages need to come home, and Hamas needs to not be a threat to the people of Gaza. Let me tell you why I equivocated.
Okay. Well, you're good at it, but go ahead.
Thanks, I guess.
You're a good arguer.
Anytime I talk about this issue, I'm mindful of the pain that people experience. Even if it's not quite accurate to say they're on opposite sides of it, because so many people I know who are really, really concerned about protecting Israel's ability to exist, and separately, I want to say that, separately, really concerned about the explosion of anti-Semitism on American campuses, will experience when you say things, even things that I think they too would agree are inarguably true about what's happening in Gaza. If you say it in a certain way, or you say certain things in a certain order, their worst fears about the abandonment of Israel or of American Jews facing anti-Semitism are confirmed. And so one of the reasons why, as somebody who does a lot of talking and a lot of politics, I have rarely felt closer to my limits in terms of the tools that are available to build consensus and talk forthrightly about these issues than on this, is because I'm conscious of the pain that comes with talking about this, even when we are saying things that are clearly true, because it turns out if you say certain things that are true and don't say all these other things that are also true, some people are inclined, for very understandable reasons, to assume the worst.
Certainly, but when Democrats talk about building back credibility with voters, it's actually framed around bringing back working class voters, for example. But we're in Michigan, a state Harris lost in part because of Arab and young voters who are furious about the Biden administration's support of Israel. How do you win back credibility if you're worried about that? I mean, a recent poll found 77% of Democrats think Israel is committing genocide in Gaza, and a UN inquiry concluded that it had. How do you bridge that gap then? Because again, like I said, same thing with Biden, we have eyes, we can see.
Yeah.
How do you do that as a Democratic Party?
By naming all of the things that are all true and that collide with each other in messy ways, but are still definitely true. And by the way, this is one, and who knows, even just between when we're sitting here and when people are listening to this podcast, what else will have happened on the ground. But in the face of this ground invasion, you see a lot of Israelis standing up and saying this is certainly not helping the hostages, this is not helping our security as the Israeli people, and it is wrong. And so I think part of what we have to do, and it's been hard in the US politics for all kinds of reasons, but to speak about this as freely as, frankly, is possible in Israel. There are sometimes things that I have read on the pages of the Jerusalem Post or Haaretz, Israeli papers, that in the past people weren't willing to say in US politics. And we have to, because they're true.
What would you state now if you were in a position of authority you would do? What would be one of the first things you would do?
It would be to make clear that the US is not going to subsidize just anything. We're not going to let the Netanyahu government take American dollars and the credibility that comes with being an ally or partner of the United States and use it to, for example, use starvation as a tool of war. This is wrong. And it's one of those things that is so wrong that all of the other things which might also be true just cannot possibly make it right. And that does mean taking a look at the things which is why that resolution, even though I think it was symbolic, was important. So I don't have all of the answers to something as vexing and as just repeatedly brutal as the Middle East conflict. But I think that the next president needs to be more willing to do that than any previous president from either party.
You do understand where young voters are. I've watched the shift happen in real time right now. And the Democratic Party has to respond to that, presumably.
Yes.